All right, Pat. Coming into camp, first thing we've talked about is stance width. In the game of football, you need your feet up and under you for balance, mobility, leverage, power. It's all football's all about. We thought you were a little bit too wide. And when you get too wide, it can create a variety of problems. One is the wider you get, the harder it is to sit down in the stance, so your center of gravity creeps ever higher. Not a winning formula in football. Number two, the harder, as you sit in, the more tension and pressure you're going to create in the hip flexors. That's going to tighten you up, tense you up. You're going to have to fight through that. It's going to slow down your motion and your power, reduce your power. Okay. Third thing is, it's hard to capture your lower body drive and motion energy and channel it into the snap, because during the motion, that leg drive needs to be back off the toes into the hips and slightly off a vertical, so that it can combine with what's coming down the spine, and we can capture and combine those energies for maximally accelerating the football to your target. Does that make sense? And then, of course, finishing too wide, you're going to lack mobility. You can end up with locked knees, which is a quick path to a short career. So we got to get those feet up and under you just a little bit. Normally, your regular football stance a little wider than the shoulders. A normal snapping stance 4, 6, or 8 inches wider than that. We just need the extra clearance between the knees, so we got operating room. Okay, uninhibited, unrestricted throw through the legs. One way to get consistent with that is, as you approach the ball, set your feet. You might want to try toes slightly outward. We found that gives people a stable base and really allows them to drive directionally into the hips with their leg drive. Okay, as you sit into the stance, push the knees out over the toes. That's going to maximize operating room between the legs without your feet necessarily being too wide. Okay, go ahead and set up facing the camera. Let's see what your stance width is looking like right now. Does that feel comfortable? We generally want to see the knees slightly wider than the shoulders, and we've got that at this point, so I'm comfortable with that. Go ahead and stand up. You were early on today pigeon toeing, which is going to, and I'm extreme here, it could make the knees collapse in. So at a minimum, we need the toes straight forward. At a maximum, we want the toes slightly outward so we can keep those knees out of the way. Fair enough? Okay. The other things we had coming into camp, frog squat, and it's very slight. We talked about that in film today. Frog squat means that your shoulders are slightly higher than your shoulders. We talked about an arrow point where the upper and lower body meet, and the energies travel down the spine, up the legs, into the hips, converge in that arrow point, and wherever it's pointed, that's where the ball's going to go, right? If you're frog squatting, you're kind of pointing your arrow into the ground, so you're either going to throw it low, or you're going to try to aim while you're in motion, which is much harder than aiming from a stable starting point. Make sense? Okay. And you're overextended downfield. There's a real tendency when you are frog squatting, because you're up high on the front end, to be too far from the football. So your arms are going to be real straight, maybe even locked out, and maybe creating some tension. What we essentially agreed in film is what we needed to do is raise the rear end a little bit, lower the front end a little bit, and move you closer to the ball by getting your knees right over your toes. Okay. Other than that, I thought it would be useful to you to strengthen both your guide hand grip, and by moving you closer to the ball, we could take that tension or stiffness out of your guide arm as well, or your secondary throwing arm. Okay. So what I thought was the solution was to raise the rear end a bit and then shift you slightly forward. I think that's really what's going to work. The other thing we saw is that prior to the snap, you're all set to go. You move the ball 2 inches forward and then you start your snap. That's going to be a dead giveaway for defense, number one. Number two, you just don't want to go there. So I think once we've unbent and moved you forward, we might pull that ball a little further forward. It's important to position knees over the toes and make sure you're not off balance is all. Okay? Go ahead and set up here real quickly. Let's see what happens. What I mean by strengthen guide arm grip or guide hand grip, spread the fingers a little bit, get positive fingertip pressure so you can actually throw and control with both hands. Okay? Go ahead and set up. We're going to three-step you real quickly. You all, I'm going to put on another drill here in just a second, okay? I'm going to pull you forward. I get your knee bend to 90 or less, straightens the back and extends the arms. I'm going to raise you up, maximizing operating room under your torso. Then I'm going to push you back into the hips towards your target, not down to the ground, till the heels touch the ground, knees are on over the toes, and you're solid on your feet. Now lift that ball up. Feel balanced? Set it down. It's okay to put that ball out further, but watch how your weight shifts. Once it shifts to that point, it's not productive. So if you're never sure, lift the ball, make sure you're balanced, drop it straight down. That's going to be a fairly optimal arm extension. Go ahead. Excellent. How's it feel? The reason I earlier thought we might want to lower your front end is because your shoulder, you were round shoulder, you were stretching down towards the ball, okay? So I was thinking we might have to lower the front end. But by unbending the back end and moving you closer to the ball, That should help. You may ultimately find lowering that front end about a ½ inch closer to the ground, the head and shoulders, is going to help you as well, okay? Let's go ahead and do that one more time. The pigeon toed is gone. That looks good. You're using the entire body. You're being quick and aggressive with it. So you were a little deep on the back end, a little stiff on the front end, okay? We unbent, moved you closer to the ball, then we settled you down to a good stance position, move the ball a little further out, but not enough to shift your weight too far forward. Give it a good hard two-handed throw. How's that feel? Slightly forward. Let's do one more and correct that. What's that?
Check gripping a little more.
Okay. Don't squeeze it to death. You're not choking a rabbit for dinner. And of course, I've never choked a rabbit to eat for dinner anyway. I don't know about you. But hey, we got to have colorful language, right? This is football. You balanced? Hard and explosive. There it is. How's it feel? Okay. Slightly off balance forward, okay, at the finish. Let's get in the habit of finishing and breaking down, see if we can stay balanced and stable. You got to be controlled throughout the snap. I'm going to shift your weight slightly before you snap this last ball, okay? Great thing to do would be to snap uphill. You've done hill drills with us before. Always wear cleats, use a spotter. Never snap on a wet hill. Wear a helmet and shoulder pads if you want to be doubly safe, okay? Okay, so I'm just going to shift your weight slightly. Throw it from right there. You should be balanced. See the difference? And that's huge. Perfect setup, including perfect balance, will lead to a perfect snap because everything's going to go where it should. Down the spine, up through the legs into the hips, straight at your target. Feel good? Any questions?